my name is Devaralei Shachta.
Hi, my name is Vera Shachta.
And we are back with Chabad Youth Plus and we are going to be doing some cooking. So we're going to make some pizza and some potato Knishes.
Yummy.
Yummy indeed. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to put the potatoes that we peeled just a little bit out of the way. Hopefully not make too much of a mess in the process. And we're going to start off with our flour. So we've got here, thank you Barry, we've got here 3 cups of flour. You're going to put the bowl down. Good. Sure you can. Okay. And put the flour straight in the bowl. 3 cups of flour we've got here. Okay, and to that flour we're going to add in our yeast, that brown powder. We've got 1 package of yeast or a tablespoon. Okay, we're going to give that a mix in. Excellent.
It's a funny type of spoon.
Well, it's a spoon and a spatula mixed together actually. Okay, we've now got a tablespoon of sugar. That's that one over there. Good girl. Pop that straight in. Excellent.
Mix.
Yeah, give it a mix. Thank you. And we've got also 1 1/3 cups of warm water, which we're going to pop in. Okay, give that a little bit of a mix. And I've got here a teaspoon of salt, which I'm going to just rain over the top. And we're going to give that a little bit of a mix to mix it through. Okay, you keep going.
Just to be aware, it's a little hard to mix.
It is a little bit hard to mix because this is actually going to turn into a dough that is stiff enough for us to use as our pizza bases. So what we're going to do is, that's the oil, we're going to use that in a minute to help the dough grow in the bowl. So what we're doing now, if you can see what we're doing, we've got a bit of, it's called a bit of a shaggy dough. We're just going to keep mixing until all of that flour is mixed in. You want to have another little go? Sure.
Oh, I get how you do it. You meant to like fold it.
That's right. We fold it around to try to get all the moist bits covered with flour to mix all that flour in. And soon, if you want to give me a go here, soon we're going to actually go to kneading it with our hands.
Can I do the kneading?
Yes, you can do the kneading. Okay. So now we've got pretty much everything that we can incorporated into our flour in the bowl. And we're going to switch to moving with our hands. So we've got here a little bit of clean workspace going on. Okay, we'll move this paper out of the way. We're actually working here on a tablecloth because this is not a milchik bench, so we're just going to keep this off the bench itself. So it's a little bit more difficult. That's right, because pizza's milchik. So it's a little bit more difficult to knead on the bench, but we'll see how we go. On the plastic on the bench, but we'll see how we go. So I'm going to pour in all the little bits of flour from around the edges of the bowl. And we're going to knead. Now, Barry, do you know what part of your hand you use to knead?
You use this thing.
Well, we can use the knuckles, but actually, we're going to use this. It's called the heel, like the heel of the palm. So, have a look here. What we're going to do, let go for a second. We're going to take the dough that's on the underneath and bring it to the top. I might just push my bracelet up. And we're going to try to use the heel of our fist, yeah, in a moment, to push the dough down, to really mix all those little bits of dough in and all the little bits of flour that are on the outside in until we get a nice smooth dough. Okay? You can keep going with that.
Now that's sticky.
It is a little bit sticky.
There's too much flour.
No, that's not why it's sticky. It's actually sticky because we're using spelt flour instead of wheat flour. But this works very well with wheat flour and it also works with spelt, so it's fine. But what we're going to do is I'm going to
wash my hands.
You can wash them in the milchik sink behind you that way. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix this in. And what we do want to have is a little bit of sticky dough. I'm just going to take a little bit of extra flour here while Barry washes her hands and just give it a good mix. Okay, so what we're left with here is a dough that is quite sticky, but after we let it rest, it won't be as sticky. And what we're going to do is we're going to take back our bowl. We're going to pour in our teaspoon of oil into the bowl. Pop that in. Okay.
Much cleaner hands than you have.
You do have cleaner hands than me now. And we're just going to toss around the dough in the bowl like so. just to get it coated in oil. And what that does is, as the dough is rising, it won't stick to the sides of the bowl. We're going to leave that dough now without playing around with it too much. And we're going to cover that up with a tea towel, and we're going to let that rest. I'm going to go and wash my hands, get a tea towel, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we've got a tea towel. We're going to cover up the dough, and we're going to let that rest while we prepare some of the other things that we need. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to prepare some of the things that we need for the Knishes while our pizza dough is resting. So we're going to make our dough first, and we're going to make this with milk instead of with water so that it's Mazonas. And we are going to mix in our ingredients. Now, this is not a yeast dough, but we're still going to want to make the dough and then let it rest just for a little bit, because the gluten in the dough, which is the protein in the flour, can get very stiff, and we want to let that relax before we roll it out to use it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 cups of flour here. We're going to mix into that our 2 teaspoons of baking powder. There you go. I'm going to give that a mix with our other spoon.
Yeah.
Very good.
One's big and one's small.
That's right, one is big and one is small. Oh, careful. Don't want to get it all over the kitchen. Okay.
Especially over our other one.
That's right. I'm going to pour in a teaspoon of salt into that flour as well.
It's pretty easy to mix.
Yeah.
All the dry ingredients.
That's right. And what we're going to do with that now is we're going to put in a half a stick of margarine. Now you can substitute that for a half a stick of oil if you like. And we're going to do something called rubbing in. And I'm going to show you, Barry, and you'll have a turn afterwards about what we do. And what we do is we don't want to melt that margarine. So we don't want to use the palm of our hands, which is warm. What we want to do is we're going to use our fingertips, which are cooler. And we're just going to put our fingers in and literally do what it says, to rub in. And we don't want to go like this. We don't want to go hands down to not see what we're doing. So we have our fingers facing up, and we just rub our thumbs across our fingers to rub in all of those bits of flour. And what we want it to do is we want it to look like breadcrumbs. And the way that we can tell if we've done a good enough job is actually just by giving the bowl a bit of a shake. And the big bits actually tend to come to the top. And then we just keep going. And Barry, you can have a go in a moment. I'll just get some flour on my fingers to rub away any more of the bits so that I can clean off all of that margarine. And now you can have a go. Have a go with that, Barry. So remember, hands up this way and rubbing your fingers along your thumb, along your fingers, okay? And keep your fingers up. We can actually do it at the same time. Keep your hands facing up the whole time. See? My hands never twist going down. They're always facing up.
Except for getting the stuff.
No, even while getting the stuff. Have a look. I just gather it up. Okay. And let's give the bowl a bit of a shake now. And if you have a look at my hands, look at your palms and look at my palms. Who's been using their palms?
Me!
You have. But my palms are quite clean. And that's because I don't want to use the palms of my hands. Yeah. I don't want to use the palm of my hands because they are warm.
Oh, my hands are cold, freezing.
Okay. Let's have a look now at our dough. You take your hands out for a moment, please, Barry.
Okay. I'm having such a good time with the flour.
Okay, so we've got our 3/4 cup of milk, which we're going to add in now. You want to pour that in?
Can I mix it?
Okay, you can mix it in a moment. All right, so we're just going to mix this in until a dough forms. Okay, so you can have a little bit of a go of that. I'm just going to add in a little bit more flour because I took out some earlier. So just add to the pizza dough. Okay, so
That's not pizza dough.
no, I used some of the extra flour that I had in the bowl there for the pizza dough. So we're just going to mix that in. And I'm going to do this part now, Barry. You can watch for a moment.
I don't want to do that part.
Because my hands are really dirty. And again, I'm just going to use my fingers to knead in this dough. Okay, just scrape down the sides of the bowl to clean off all of that flour and get it all mixed in together. Okay, so I'll just, this one we don't really need to knead, right?
Need to knead.
We don't need to knead it outside of the bowl. This one does fine inside the bowl. And it comes together.
To like mush it together.
That's right, because this one's not a yeast dough. And we don't need to let it rise, but we do
Because
need...
yeast helps it rise.
That's right, but we do need to let it rest. This one has baking paper inside the dough, and you'll see that it will just come together very nicely. No, that's okay. Okay, so this one comes together very nicely, and we have our dough, and it's ready to go. And I'm just going to pop that into a plastic bag to let that rest. Okay.
But then it has no air.
No, it doesn't need air to rise. It just needs, or it doesn't need air to rest, I should say. It just needs to rest. So we're going to just set that aside. And what we'll do is we'll clean up these bowls and we'll come back to prepare our potatoes. Okay, so now we're back and we're going to prepare our vegetables to put inside our potato knishes while our dough for our knishes is resting over here and our dough for our pizza is rising over here. And it's really just sitting and resting. We don't worry about it rising too much. We just like it to rise a little. And it's going to sit over here and rest. Okay. And our pizza dough. So what we're going to do is we're going to chop up our potatoes. Do you want to get another knife and you can have a go?
Yeah.
And we're just going to be careful with how we cut the potatoes. I'm making my fingers into a bridge, like so, and chopping up the potato into pieces so that it will cook faster. Have a look, Barry. I want you to put your hands one on each end. And the knife goes in the middle, okay? That's it. And what we want to do is we want to put, careful, your finger's going to go there in the middle. We want to make sure the knife goes all the way from end to end of the potato. Okay, and then we're going to pop them into the pot.
Can you pop it in?
Yes, of course I can. And just cutting them up into thickish kind of slices helps us to cook the potato quicker.
I didn't do it at the end.
Right, so that's, we need just a little bit more power. Okay, Barry, can you pour the cold water in over the potatoes, please, till they're covered? That's great. And we'll just do a little sprinkling of salt there. Or move around the potatoes to make sure that they're all covered. And we'll get that fork ready to see when the potatoes are done. Okay, and we've got here our fry pan, which I'm going to add some oil to. You can pop in some oil. There you go. And we are going to turn up our flame now. Get that oil heated up. I'm going to turn up the flame on the pot with the potatoes, and we are going to fry our onions as well. We're just going to wait for that oil to heat up just a little bit. And I'm going to add in just a little bit more water to make sure that those potatoes are covered. Okay, here we've got our oil heating up. Darling, this is a job near hot oil. It's a job for an hour, okay? And I'm going to pop in the onions. Okay, can you pop that into the sink, please, for me? The sink, that's great. And we're going to spread out the onions here, and we just want them to get a nice golden colour.
Kind of like fried onion.
That's exactly what we're doing. We're frying the onion. And we're also going to add salt to the onion at this point because it adds layers of flavour. Okay.
What are we going to do now?
We're just going to wait. So these potatoes are fork tender and our onions are done, and we've switched those off and they've cooled down a little bit. And now we're going to switch off the potatoes and we're going to pour off the water and we're going to give them a mash. Come back to our table over there. Okay, so now we're back. We've got our potatoes, which are here, and we've drained most of the water. We've just left a little bit in at the bottom. It actually makes it a bit easier to mash our potatoes. We've got our onion, which is here. It has been fried and it has cooled off a little bit. We've got one egg, which we have just beaten with a fork very gently. And we've got another egg actually here in a bowl, which we're going to glaze our knish with after we're done. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this potato. You want to try and give it a bit of a mash, Berry? We don't have a melted potato masher, so we're just going to do this with a fork. And it might take us a minute or two. I might get another fork.
Super fun.
Super fun.
Mummy, you just have to try and break it.
That's right. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're just trying to break up.
It's very easy since we can drain all the water.
That's right. Okay. Two of us together makes it work, huh?
Yeah, I just gotta get that big piece up there. Two forks together.
Okay. If you want to just pop your fork out for a second, we're just going to see where we're up to.
Can I see? Do some
We don't mind if it's, hold on one second. We don't mind if it's not perfectly mashed, but we want to make sure that the bulk of it is mashed. And it's quite soft, and doing it with a potato, just with a fork, is good enough.
That was a big piece.
There was a bit of a big piece left. Okay,
So I just mashed.
what we're going to do now is we're going to mix through that onion. Okay.
Put the onion
So I'll pour the onion in and you give it a mix. How about that? And we're going to actually pour all of that oil in because it's got lots of good flavouring in it and it helps to make the potatoes quite creamy. Okay. Creamy and smooth. Helps us to smooth out the potatoes. So,
should I mix it with
you want to
this
give that a bit of a mix, Berry?
into all the potato? An onion piece.
So we're just going to put in some salt now, a couple of teaspoons of salt, and we're going to give it a big stir. Hold on one second. I'm just going to really stir that through.
Can you make some plain?
Just plain mashed potato without the, not into Knishes.
No, just
Oh, you
mashed
like it
potato.
without the onion?
Yeah.
Next time, okay?
Okay, fine. This time I'll have
It
it.
doesn't have so much onion in it this time. We only did one onion instead of two. Okay. And we've got our mashed potato here. Now, if I was to be making the Knishes straight away, it would actually melt our dough. So what we're going to do is we're just going to let that sit and rest for a couple of minutes while we do our pizza. So, if we have a look here at our pizza dough, I'm just going to get rid of this mess a little bit.
How did I know we're going to use the pizza dough?
Made for our Knishes afterwards. So what we've got here is our pizza dough, and if you have a look here, it has risen quite beautifully. And what we're going to do is we're going to not try to deflate it. We're just going to try and pull it away from the bowl a little bit. Hold on one second. We're not kneading it now. So I've just got now here a handful of flour, and we're going to just pop that onto the bench, and we're going to pull our dough out of the bowl. It comes away quite nicely because there was oil on the bowl, and we're just going to pop it onto our bench. And the reason why I've just put flour down is because I don't want it to stick to the bench. I'm going to cut this dough into, depends on the size pan that you're using. I'm using these pizza pans here that I've got. So I'm going to cut mine into thirds. And what we want to do is we want to just roll that dough out, and you'll see we can just do it with our hands. You can use a rolling pin if you like to, but I actually find that it's easier to get it nice and round if we use our hands. So that's what we're going to do. So we just sort of pull it a little bit out, and we want to have a little bit thicker at the crust and just pull the dough out. And it really only was rising while our potatoes were boiling, so not that long. It rises quite quickly, this dough. And we've got here our pizza dough, and I'm going to take our
Easier to spread it on the thing.
pizza tray and just pop it out. Would you like to try to do it directly on the tray, Berry?
Yeah.
Okay, we could do that. So we're just going to get that moving around, spread out some of the thinner bits and some of the thicker bits. And what we want to try and avoid is playing with it too much, because then all of that gluten will tighten up. So you can pop that one on there, and I will prepare the third one. So we'll just do the same thing.
Can I have the rolling pin, please?
I want you to try to do it with your hands, because I think everyone can just do it with their hands, and it's really so much easier.
Just kind of pull it on.
That's right, you just kind of push it out and it moves. It's a really nice forgiving dough.
Forgive?
Forgiving, as in it doesn't really matter how you play with it. It sort of just pulls to where you need it to go. Okay.
I'm going pretty good with it.
So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to lift up your dough and spread it out to even out the thicker bits and the thinner bits, okay? And we're just going to try to get no holes in it.
There is a hole there.
There is a bit of a hole there. The more you play with it, the stickier it's going to feel. So we're just going to move it around to try to get
Why are there so many holes?
it pulled out. Now we only use 3 cups of flour here, so we don't need to separate challah. If you're going to be making a lot more for a larger family, then bear that in mind, that this 3 cups of flour is about 500 grams of flour. And if you're going to be doing anything more than 1.13, so if you're going to be sort of 2.5 times in the recipe, you're going to need to separate. And if you're going to be doing anything about 3.5 times the recipe or more, you're going to need to separate with a bracha. So just to bear that in mind. And we have here our beautiful pizza bases. It's really not going to matter how they are looking because they're going to get covered up now in our sauce and cheese.
Can I do the sauce?
Yes, I'm going to pop that sauce on. We use about 2 to 3 tablespoons of sauce, and you want to give that a smear. I'm going to get another spoon and do the same.
Smear.
A smear. Okay, so we've got about 3 tablespoons, and if you have a look, we just don't want to get it all the way out to the edges, but we want to make sure that there's a nice amount of sauce spread evenly.
Over there.
It did? That's okay.
Just don't want to get too much on the edges.
And we've got another pizza base over here. Yeah, you can. There we go. Okay. What we might do is we might move this tray from underneath you to make your job a little bit easier.
There's a knife under it.
There's a knife there too. We can move that as well. All right. So what we actually start with first, now I think that some people when they make homemade pizzas, they start with all the toppings and then they put the cheese on top, and the cheese gets nice and toasty, but the toppings don't get a chance to cook. So if you've ever watched in a pizza store, what they do is they actually put the cheese down first. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm just going to take a handful of cheese and we're going to sprinkle it around. Now in this house, we have a lot of people who like just plain pizzas with nothing on it. So we're not going to add toppings to 2 of them. And I sort of just like to spread the cheese out. That can go in the sink, darling.
Why don't we put toppings on 2 of them and 1 of them plain?
So we have more people in the house that like plain, that's why.
More people that like pineapple, actually.
Well, that's true. We could do one with just pineapple. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put the cheese here onto our pizza.
Can I do the cheese on this one?
Yeah, you want to try the cheese on that one? And then we're going to add our toppings on top. So on this one here, we're going to do just some plain pineapple, because we do have some people who like plain pineapple. We're just going to do actually a half with plain pineapple, I think. And we're going to do 1/4 with plain olives, because that's how Barry likes olives. Right, okay.
I love olives, not like I love it.
You love olives, okay.
And pickles.
We can get the rest of that cheese all on this pizza. Okay, we can put that one to the side. Thank you, Barry. And this one here, we're going to load up with a few more toppings. We're going to pop on some corn and some pineapple. We can do this one at the same time together.
Olives.
We're going to do olives on this one in a second. You can just pop the corn all around.
And just put it.
Yeah, I think you can just sprinkle it nicely with your hands, otherwise it will get into a big lump, okay?
It's freezing.
It's because it was frozen corn and it hasn't quite defrosted yet, but that's okay.
It's going to defrost in the oven.
It will defrost in the oven. Okay.
Trying to get all the corn.
Now, when the pizzas are at this stage, you can actually pop them into the fridge. You can prepare this earlier in the day if you like. You can prepare it just with the sauce and the cheese and pop them into the fridge, and then they can rest there until you're ready to bake it in the afternoon, ready fresh for dinner. Or you can pop them straight into a pizza oven or a toaster oven or a milchik oven Now at this point, we have a plug-in pizza oven and we're going to get going with that really soon. Okay, so we have a benchtop pizza oven and we're just heating that up over here. I'm going to turn that on to heat it up, and it's got a stone inside it. We're going to pop these inside here and we'll let that bake. We'll let that cook while we are preparing our knishes. Okay, we've got our potato mix here. It's cooled down a little bit now. It's still quite warm, but it's cooled down enough. And we're going to pour in an egg. And what that egg does is it helps to keep the potato together inside the knish. I'm going to give that a quick mix because I don't want that to turn into scrambled eggs inside our potato. And that also actually helps it to taste quite creamy and soft as well. Okay, so now...
Well, the egg is kind of creamy already.
That's right, it looks kind of creamy already, doesn't it? We've probably got our potato a little bit warm here, but we just want to move on with our cooking. So we are going to leave that to the side. Okay. Here we have our dough, and that's been resting for about a half an hour while we've been cooking our other bits and pieces. And we're going to take out our dough, and I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of flour down on our bench, get that on both sides. And Barry, if you want to just give that to me. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do two, but I'm just going to do one at a time, two big knishes. So what I want to do is I want to get this into a big rectangle. So, let go, Barry. What we want to do is just roll it out. Now it's a little bit difficult here on our plastic, so what I'm just going to do is get a bit of a shape going here, like this. And I might actually just pull it to the shape that I want it to be in. So what we're doing is just pulling it out to be nice and wide. Not quite the size of an A4 page. We won't get two pieces that big, but almost, right, Barry?
Just a little smaller.
A little smaller, that's right.
The size of 4 of my hands.
That's true. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's good measuring skills, Barry. Good estimating and good measuring skills. That's right, handspan. Okay, so we have our piece of dough that's about this big.
4 hands.
4 handspans of Barry. If any of you have a Barry at home, then you can use her handspan. And we've got our dough sitting in front of us. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our potato mix and we're going to lump it in the middle. We're going to bring that a little bit closer, Barry. And I just want to keep the sides empty, but you can use the middle, okay? So now we've got our dough that is filled here with potato. We might just get a little bit more here at the end. We don't want to miss out the ends. Just that much?
Because the middle is a little low.
Was the middle low? All right. So we're just going to smooth out our sides. And having the egg in there helps us to do that. Okay. Now this is the part that, well, I'm using a knife, but this is the part that makes it look pretty. So what we do is, at a downwards angle, we just cut the dough.
Oh, I know. It just makes like a different look. But it tastes the exact same.
That's right. It tastes the same, but it helps us to make it look pretty, right?
It just makes it look pretty. It's the same as regular,
but we just want to make sure here that we don't cut the plastic underneath here to go down to the bench. And what we're going to do is as follows. So I've cut the lines downwards towards me. You'll probably do it the other way. And we take these corner bits here at the top. So these will be at the other end. They will be further away from you, but I'm doing this hopefully so that you'll be able to see. And we just tuck them in together. And then we do alternating sides, and we just, hold on, we just want to do it slowly. We just pull the pieces down and across. Okay, you go, Barry. There we go. Wonderful. Keep going. There, you got it. Keep going. Beautiful. And this braids our pastry. Our dough, yeah. Good job. Yeah. And we just stretch that over.
Okay, you do that side, I do this.
Sure. Until we reach the end. And do the last bit.
Can't see.
That's okay. And then we can just, if there's a little bit left at the end, like there is in this case, we can just cut that off or tuck it in underneath. Okay, and now this is the tricky part. We want to get that onto our tray.
Very tricky. I'll let you
Very
do that
tricky.
part.
So in this case, what we're going to do is I'm actually just going to lift it up. Oh, it's harder because it's stuck to our plastic. I think the next one we'll do on the paper directly. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that's way better.
It's easier on a bench top. And we pop that down on our tray and we'll get it back into shape. Okay, Berry?
That looks so pretty, but
So
I
now
found it in the
that's
middle.
on our tray, that's right. We'll use the second tray for the second one. And now would you like to brush that with egg so that gets nice and golden in the oven? And we're going to pop that into the oven. In the meantime, I can smell that this pizza oven is nice and hot, and you can, I don't know if you can see the steam that's coming up off that. And I'm going to pop in my pizza. So we'll start with this one here with the olives and the pineapple on it. If it's exactly in my tray, I'm going to pop it on. Now, I'm not going to leave it on too high, because if I leave it on too high, it will burn the top before the underneath is fully cooked. So I turn down the oven a little bit. The stone is nice and hot. It will heat it up from the underneath. I don't want the element on too high on top, and that will cook beautifully. And Berry is doing a really nice job over here, egging our Knish, and we're going to get that in the oven, and we'll show you what that looks like when we are done. We'll show you the pizza as well. Okay, so Berry has done a beautiful job of putting egg on top of that Knish. I'm going to pop that into the oven to bake, and in the meantime we're going to set up the second Knish as well, and we'll do that on a piece of baking paper so it will be easier to transfer, and we'll show you what we do as we do it. And I'm going to pop that into the oven to stuff, okay? So our pizza is getting nice and toasty, the dough is cooking, and the cheese on top is melting. In the meantime, we've got a piece of baking paper here. We're going to roll out the dough. Berry, you want to have a go? I'll hold the paper tight for you.
I know how to roll it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get too thick and not too thin.
That's right.
I'm going to have to check it so it's 4 handstands.
I'm just going to stretch it out just a little bit for you there.
Just going to get... Ugh.
Can I have a go?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'm just going to hold the side of that baking paper down. And give it, you want to hold the baking paper down for me? That'll be easier. That's better.
Okay, I'll put...
Hold on. I'm just going to hold the side of that baking paper down. And we give that a good stretch. Okay.
I have to check 4 handstands.
It's not going to be 4 handstands
I'm
yet.
going to check.
It's not going to be 4 handstands yet, Berry. 1, 2.
3.
See, only 3. So we're going to give that another little stretch out. Just going to push that out with our
Until
hands.
it's 4 handstands, or my 4 handstands.
That's right. So it's your 4
Now
handstands. Hold on. It's still a bit thick here on the sides.
Okay, now
It's getting close, I think. Go for it.
2, 3, 3.5.
3 and a bit. Okay.
And a half.
So we're
It's
just going to
bubbly.
stretch that out a little. Make sure we don't have any tears. We'll just fill in that hole. And I think we're ready to go. What do you
That
reckon?
is a tear.
That's okay. That won't matter. You ready?
1, 2, 3, 4.
4 handstands.
Now we get to do the fun bit.
So we've got our dough here, and we're going to spread out the potato in the middle of that dough. You use the fork again, and I'll use the
I want to
spatula.
spread
Okay?
it. Can I spread some?
There we go. Let's just get that potato on nice and thick.
Oh my gosh. Can I spread some now?
Yeah, I'll pop it on and then you can spread it, okay? How about that?
I'm going to go put this in the sink.
No problem. Okay. You have a little go at spreading that. I'm just going to have a little inspection here. Oh, our pizza dough looks like it's going very nicely, doesn't it? Okay. Our pizza has risen beautifully and the cheese is getting nice and toasty on top. And you can see the parts where there's plain cheese, it's already crisping up, and where there are toppings, it's not quite so crispy yet. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to help you, Berry, to smooth that out and make that all even all the way along. What do you reckon? Do you think that's a little bit better?
But was my smoothing good?
You did a really beautiful job. Okay, what do you reckon? Ready to go?
Yeah, can I do a knife?
I'm going to do the knife because I want to make sure that we don't cut through the paper, okay? So again, I'm doing the downward line towards me, but you will do it away from you.
Like you would do it that way.
That's right. But we're just showing everybody what we do. The truth is it can actually be done both ways. That's okay. So I'm just going to do those top bits, and you can start with this left side. Now this is actually doing it the opposite way. It works both ways, so it's fine.
The opposite way of just what we did before.
The opposite way of what we did before, because we started at the top last time. So what we want to make sure is that, see this little end, that we tuck it underneath the next one, and that this end is tucked underneath this one, okay? And that's how the braid turns out really pretty. So we want to do it always at the same angle, going down. Good job, okay? Keep going. There we go. Wow, you are a superstar. You are good at this.
Because I once did it in my classroom just with challah.
Cool.
Because my teacher gave us plastic knives.
Okay.
Except we did it the opposite way.
Hold on. There we go. And this knish is almost done.
Nearly done to spread the
And we're just going to tuck the ends under, and now it's actually a lot easier for me to just lift up this beautiful braid. I don't know if you can see. I don't know if you can see that there. So that is our braided knish. We're going to pop that onto our tray. Berry's going to egg that up, and we'll get that into the oven. And in the meantime, I'm going to have a look here at our pizza, which really has risen so beautifully. I can see there's little bits of golden at the bottom. And here we have our pizza dough, just all ready to eat. So here's our pizza, and we have our knish, which is in the oven baking. And there we go. Dinner is almost ready.
Just make sure that you don't spread, you don't put the brush on too hard, otherwise it can
ruin the braids?
Yeah.
That's right. So good tip from Berry, when you're spreading the egg, make sure you don't press too hard to ruin the braids, and make sure you get all of the dough nicely covered so that it goes golden evenly, right?
Just gonna do these sides.
Okay. The inside is pretty much cooked. Our potato kind of cooked the egg inside, so we're not really worried about the inside being cooked as much, as we just want the dough to be nice and golden. It usually takes around 20 to 25 minutes, depending on your oven, at about 190 degrees. So for now, we have our pizza, we have our second knish, which is going to go into the oven to be baked. And what do we want to say?
Bye.
Bye from us. Have a great day.